Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 Spoilers Update channel. Victor's Phase 2, Nikki vs. Jill and Tessa's Bad News. According to Spoilers for the Young and the Restless, a teaser clip for the week of October 6th, 2025 has been made public. It depicts Tessa Porter coming back with unfavorable news regarding Mariah Copeland. Nikki Newman and Jill Abbott are at odds. Victor Newman also shares Phase 2 of his proposal with Victoria Newman. Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. Return of Tessa Porter. Let's begin with Tessa and Daniel Jr., who have just returned from their vacation. They proceeded to look into the hotel room where she allegedly came dangerously close to killing a man. Sharon Newman, however, enthusiastically inquires as to if Tessa and Daniel discovered anything when they returned to the coffee shop. The singer acknowledges that both Daniel and Tessa had down faces. It certainly doesn't sound like good news. Mariah's reaction when she finds out that Tessa and Daniel are investigating is another factor. According to the redhead, she tried to murder a man. That suggests he lived, but it's obvious he set Mariah off something that made her attempt to kill him. Perhaps Daniel and Tessa do converse with the man. Mariah might not be safe around them at all, and Tessa may have good reason to be concerned. The second phase of Victor Newman. Victor meets up with Victoria at the ranch. The brunette wants to know if her father has a strategy in place to keep Cain Ashby out of their kingdom. The woman may possibly be curious about the status of Victor and Jack Abbott's precarious partnership. After giving his daughter a brief explanation, Victor informs her that this is just phase 1 of the plan, the concern of Victoria Newman. Victoria then adds, "May I inquire what phase 2 is?" The patriarch is unlikely to provide too much information. The man has entire faith in Victoria, but he is also aware of her moral sensibilities. Victor also doesn't want to take the chance of anything going wrong. Victoria might start to worry about Billy Abbott in the midst of all of this. Jill Abbott versus Nikki Newman. According to Spoilers for the week of October 6th on The Young and the Restless, the preview clip also features Nikki and Jill fighting. When they have some alone time, the blonde shares something she has been holding within for a while. After Jack's severe rejection, Billy turns to Jill for assistance. According to previews for The Young and the Restless, Jack Abbott is correct to refuse his brother's most recent plea. When Billy Abbott told Jack that he was playing games, he was mistaken. Instead, the head of Jabot wants to prepare for the anticipated arabesque attack by preserving as much flowing cash as possible. Billy finds that reaction unacceptable and thinks Jack would give him the money he needs. Other warning signs included the statements that he would be the chief operating officer and that Sally Spectra would be the CEO of Abbott Communications. Billy was also unaware that immediately before he showed up at Jabot headquarters, Jack and Jill Abbott had a fruitful video conference. The relationship between Sally Spectra and Billy nearly lost his most recent love once more. Up to this point, readers were able to visualize Sally at Chancellor Park, sympathizing with Audra Charles while holding her hand at the neckline of her workout attire. Audra has been a good friend to Sally despite having a lot of personal problems, most of which are her own fault. Devoted daytime fans are aware that Silver and Hope's characters were created as friends, so they would have someone with whom to discuss Genoa City, Wisconsin life. Billy had just lately promised to change his ways, and after he hurled himself into the Chancellor hole, Sally was on the verge of leaving him. That was the reason behind his pop-in with Jack. Jack Abbott must preserve the family's heritage. It takes thought, gumption, and a good tongue bite to go see Victor Newman. However, Jack took that action because he is aware of Cain Ashby's serious threat. It makes sense for Jack to temporarily link himself with Newman Enterprises in order to stop Cain from taking over their businesses. Victor reluctantly agrees to collaborate with Jack because, like him, he believes that Jill's contribution is essential to preventing Cain from moving forward. Billy is so preoccupied with the cards he believes he has been dealt that he hardly notices the wider picture. Billy wants to satisfy Sally's demands while still regaining Chancellor, if at all possible, while Jack is risking permanent preservation with Victor. It is possible for Jill Abbott to transform lives. It's always wonderful to have a cast member return. Walton's contract is recurrent. Billy's mother and the Lady Kane views as a mother figure are thus only seldom seen by viewers. Billy's present business objective can be funded by Jill's money. By admitting to Jack that Billy was mistreated when she sold Chancellor to Victor, she would be able to make peace. More urgently, Kane's perspective must be altered. Victor and Jack's partnership may be the last resort in GC if Jill is unable to accomplish it, or at the very least significantly change his perspective. Gina and Nina return home, and Patty Weaver and Trisha cast make a comeback. Longtime fans of The Young and the Restless may have some good news coming their way, as Soap Opera Digest reports that Nina Webster and Gina Roma will be returning to Genoa City for a very special occasion sometime in November. Read more about the return of actresses Trisha Cast and Patty Weaver below. On set are the actresses. According to SOD, Cast and Weaver are both presently filming on the Y&R set. Why do they return to GC? Well, of course, Christine Blair and Danny's wedding. Danny's sister and the Bug's best friend must be present to congratulate the couple and offer support for their subsequent marriage attempt. Naturally, this may be a poignant occasion due to Cricket and Danny's marriage, as well as Nina's first appearance since the nice murder of her son, Chance Chancellor Connor Floyd. If the mother encounters Kane Ashby, will there be conflict between Nina and him? Time will tell. Danny and Christine say, "I do." It's a significant occasion for many of the characters on the painting, not just Cricket, Danny, Gina, and Nina. On the day of the wedding, everyone except Phyllis Summers, who could cause problems for the happy couple. Time will tell. The Bug and Rockstar were last married in a Hawaiian wedding in 1990. Naturally, Nina served as Christine's matron of honor, and Gina sang "Starting Here, Starting Now" as the bride walked down the aisle. Will the two perform comparable responsibilities in the future? To discover out, fans will need to tune in. A shadow over Sharon's coffee house in Tessa's return. In true Y&R fashion, the week begins in stillness. A scene of tranquility before emotional turmoil is depicted in a slow pan across crimson lights, where steam from freshly brewed coffee curls into the fall air. When Tessa Porter and Daniel Jr. enter the room, Sharon Newman's heart skips a beat because they are not the optimistic investigators they were before they left, but rather two individuals burdened by information they wish they didn't have. Before she even talks, Tessa's expression says it all. The shivering apprehension has taken the place of the cheerful optimism that usually shines in her eyes. The question that every mother, friend, and spouse fears is posed by Sharon. Did you find anything? The silence drags on for too long. Tessa's lips clench as Daniel lowers his head, shame coursing across his features. At last she quietly acknowledges, "Yes, Sharon, we did. Furthermore, it's worse than we anticipated. A storm that could completely alter Mariah Copeland's plot starts at that point." What Daniel and Tessa found. It was unsettling enough that Mariah admitted that she tried to kill a man. However, the visit to the former hotel room uncovers more than just the scene of a crime. The man, who was named Michael Swan, survived, but his memory presents Mariah in an unsettling way, as a woman haunted by repressed anguish, set off by a face from her past. There is more to Tessa's awful news than Mariah's actions. It concerns what she is still capable of. Mariah's job, stability, and family may all suffer if Swan files charges or divulges information. It's a moral issue for Tessa. She is aware that love does not entail unquestioning devotion. But how can one defend their beloved when the truth itself has the power to destroy them? She fears not only Mariah's future, but also her soul. Ever the maternal fulcrum, Sharon feels the weight of silence. She has witnessed the disintegration of a loved one while attempting to keep them together before. However, even she is aware that comfort is insufficient to survive this storm. You may anticipate Mariah's outburst in response to Tessa's probe. She will react angrily to betrayal, remorse, and fear. And in Genoa City, those feelings have a way of seeping into all other plot lines like coffee spilling into new secrets. Using strategy instead of emotion. Power hums like static before lightning at the Newman ranch across town. Behind his desk, Victor Newman, the mustache, the titan, the manipulator, is planning not only retaliation but also the preservation of his empire. Calm but cautious, Victoria walks in. "So, what's your next move against Kane Ashby?" she asks in a tone that is surprisingly gentle. Victor doesn't respond right away. He pours himself a brandy instead, which is a more psychological than social ritual. Victor views every glass swirl as a calculation, another move on the company's survival chessboard. The uncomfortable partnership with Jack Abbott, known as Phase 1, has already begun. Two lifetime adversaries banding together to fight a shared threat is an unusual display of pragmatism. However, Victor is not a man who readily trusts, especially when the adversary is as crafty as Jack. Victoria presses him, saying, "May I inquire what Phase 2 is?" Victor flashes that icy, sardonic grin. He claims that Phase 2 is when everyone understands who is truly in charge. Like thunder, the line lands. It's about reclaiming power, not just about Kane Ashby. Victor plans to outsmart Jack, Jill, and even his own kids in order to make sure Newman Enterprises not only endures, but also takes the lead. The plan's psychology. Victor's Phase 2 is a throwback to classic Newman strategies, which are psychological warfare disguised as business planning. Jack will probably be used as a temporary shield as Kane's leverage is gradually undermined, and eventually the partnership will be transformed into another conquest. Even while Victoria won't say it out loud, she can sense that there is a deeper layer. There has always been a personal price for her father's fixation with control. He becomes more and more untrustworthy as he manipulates the world. Despite her business acumen, Victoria still has the sensitivity of a daughter. She is torn between appreciating her father's genius and disliking his cruelty. The sorrow that every Newman child experiences when she pleads, "Please don't go too far this time," is revealed, adoring a man who views feelings as flaws. Every Phase 2 in the Newman narrative ultimately calls for a sacrifice. This time the question is, who will bear the cost? Jill versus Nikki, a historical showdown. Two matriarchs are poised to start a verbal sparring match that might change alliances in Genoa City, while Victor plans the future course of his empire. The air crackles as Jill Abbott and Nikki Newman are left alone in Chancellor Winter's conference room. Like ghosts, decades of rivalry, animosity, and unspoken grievances linger between them. Nikki begins by saying, "There's something I've wanted to get off my chest for a long time," in a tone that is deceptively courteous. Jill makes the traditional Abbott deflection by raising an eyebrow, but her posture becomes rigid. She is familiar with Nikki's confrontational style, which is precise, deadly, and laced with sugar. The origins of the competition. This conflict is not new. Conflicts over men, prestige, and power have surrounded Nikki and Jill since the 1980s. Their most recent dispute, however, is more complex and involves a struggle for influence as opposed to love. According to Nikki, Jill's new financial scheming and the Chancellor's association with Kane are dangerous and might put both Jabot and Newman in jeopardy. Nikki has no concept what actual entrepreneurship looks like outside of her husband's shadow. Jill, who has always been a trailblazer in the business world, responds. Jill jokes, "Victor built his empire. You just embellished it." Nikki has icy fire in her eyes. "And you've spent your entire life pursuing the legacies of others." It's truth that cuts through decades of performance, not simply cattiness. Both women are survivors who fought their way up to positions of authority in a male-dominated society. If sisters wore diamonds while flinging daggers, their rivalry would be nearly sisterly since they are more alike than either will acknowledge. When Billy Abbott is brought up, the conversation gets heated. While Jill retorts that Nikki's own family, especially Nick and Victoria, had made equally self-destructive decisions under Victor's supervision. Nikki feels that Jill's indulgence of Billy is contributing to his instability. Silence, the dangerous kind that typically indicates someone is going to act behind the other's back, instead of resolution, marks the conclusion of the debate. Anticipate the corporate landscape to be affected by this battle. While Nikki might unintentionally undermine her personal peace by influencing Victor's upcoming corporate strike, Jill might respond by briefly supporting Kane. Jack's rejection and Billy's breakdown. Billy Abbott has reached a breaking point in his desperation. He storms into Jabot expecting his brother's customary reluctant tolerance after making another rash financial pitch. However, Jack doesn't move this time. Jack's reluctance is survival, not malice. He understands that Jabot must protect every dollar of liquidity in anticipation of Kane's impending arabesque assault. Sentimentality is not appropriate given the high stakes. Billy's self-destructive blind hole is exposed in his response when he accuses Jack of playing games. At his core, he is a risk-taker who is constantly seeking approval. Jack's refusal to give him money is more than simply a business turn down. It's a personal one. It serves as yet another reminder that he is the unreliable brother. Spectra of Sally in the crossfire. Sally Spectra, meantime, is emotionally torn between fatigue and empathy. With each comeback being less than the previous, her relationship with Billy has devolved into a cycle of promises and breakdowns. In a rare instance of female camaraderie arising from shared chaos, Audra Charles, of all persons, serves as her sounding board. The image of Sally's hand at the neckline of her workout top in the Chancellor Park crisis scene perfectly captures suffocation. She is caught between rationality and love. Although she has a strong bond with Billy, desire without stability is poison. Sally may finally walk away from Billy if he continues to pursue illusions, whether they be self-redemption or business aspirations. Furthermore, her next action can rekindle ancient triangles in different ways by entwining her destiny with Jack, Adam, or even Nick. The strategic fraternity of Jack and Victor. One of Y&R's more fascinating enemy of my enemy arcs is Jack's choice to side with Victor against Kane Ashby. Although both men hate each other's morals, they have an underlying admiration for one another's guile. Jack views the union as a calculated risk, a temporary collaboration to protect Jabot's heritage. Victor sees it as a chance to try Jack's devotion and potentially ruin him in the future. Decades of unresolved animosity are concealed behind the mutual appearance of civility. They are momentarily bound by their common objective of halting Kane's growth and preventing him from using Chancellor assets. The spectator is aware that one of them is already plotting the other's demise, even as they shake hands. This plot symmetry is what makes it so brilliant. Victor is battling to preserve the Empire, while Jack is striving to preserve the family history. As aging titans facing legacy and mortality, neither man can afford to lose control. Arc of Jill's redemption. Jill Abbott emerges as a moderating force as the younger generation vacillates between ambition and self-destruction. She repositions herself as Billy's emotional center and power broker by agreeing to finance his business endeavors, not out of naivete, but rather out of mother guilt. Jill becomes more relatable when she tells Jack that selling Chancellor to Victor was her greatest regret. Jill rarely admits her mistakes, especially when it comes to her sons. That humility might portend a new chapter of redemption, or a terrible one if her kindness leads to Billy's demise again. In the Jack, Victor, and Kane standoff, Jill continues to be the wild card. She has the ability to tip the scales because of her wealth, connections to both sides, and influence. And in typical Y&R fashion, the terms of battle in Genoa City may be altered by a single hushed agreement or sentimental choice made by Jill. Mariah's anger, Tessa's fear. Let's return to Tessa and Mariah, the story's emotional core. Mariah reacts explosively when Tessa shares what she discovered. Betrayal is like lightning coursing through her veins. You did something behind my back. Her voice cracks between sadness and rage as she screams. Beneath that rage, though, lies a fear that comes with confronting one's worst self. The man she assaulted symbolizes not only a violent incident, but also a returning trauma connected to her abduction years prior. Guilt, PTSD, and the brittleness of recovery are among the fundamental psychological issues that the plot touches on. Tessa becomes into a target as well as a savior. Although she is attempting to assist, Mariah believes that she is also the one who rekindled old scars. Truth versus protection is the biggest test yet for their love, one of the most exquisitely constructed same-sex couples on the program. Anticipate that this plot will veer into moral and legal quandaries, potentially causing Sharon to have another moral crisis and have to decide between justice and her family. Jill, Sally, Tessa, and Nikki. The way that women bear the emotional intelligence of Genoa City's catastrophe is a recurring theme in this week's story. Despite being in varying degrees of agony and power, Nikki, Jill, Tessa, and Sally all struggle with identifying their identities outside of the male-dominated city's destiny. To demonstrate that she is more than Victor's moral compass, Nikki battles. Jill finds it difficult to remain independent while managing turmoil. Tessa struggles with a love that could end her life. Sally discovers that unrestrained love is detrimental to oneself. Their parallel arcs show the silent development of Y&R, from women being motivated by men's conflicts to women completely redefining the battlefield. Act 9. Gina and Nina's return. Legacy connects with the present. As October progresses, nostalgia and closure are brought about by the reappearance of Patty Weaver and Trisha Cast, Nina Webster. Their entrance at the wedding of Christine Blair and Danny connects the current plots to the heyday of the show. It's thematic symmetry, not just fan service. The old guard returns to remind Genoa City of what it always stood for: love, loyalty, and redemption, while the present generation is drowning in deceit and suspicion. Nina's sadness over her son Chance is still very much present, and she will revisit old wounds if she meets Cain. Ever the sentimental one, Gina might be the voice of calm in the midst of chaos, singing at yet another wedding in the Newman era and letting everyone know that love songs can still be heard even in the midst of a storm. The wedding will serve as a symbolic beginning and a reminder that at its core, Y&R is still a tale of second chances, even after decades of corporate violence and treachery. Symbols, themes, and legacy. Redemption and power. Victor, Jack, Jill, Billy, Tessa, and Nikki are all significant players who are trying to gain control or be forgiven. Genoa City is more of a psychological battleground than a town. Family as money. Loyalty and affection are commodities that can be traded in Y&R. Victor uses familial relationships as a weapon. Jack protects his. Jill heals with hers. And in order to live, Mariah puts hers at stake. Conflict cycles. Every conclusion leads to a new beginning, and every partnership conceals a betrayal in the future. Phase 2 is more than simply a business strategy. It is a metaphor for Y&R as a whole. The price of confidentiality. Whether it's Victor's covert Phase 2, Mariah's near-murder confession, or Nikki's bottled-up animosity toward Jill, concealment continues to be the oldest illness in the city. Future plans for Genoa City. The chessboard will be ready by the end of the week. Phase 2 of Victor's plan starts. Most likely involves the manipulation of Kane's or Jack's resources. Jill could have to decide between keeping Chancellor safe and keeping Billy safe. When force is ineffective, Nikki may end up playing a surprising role in Victor's war by employing charm. Tessa and Mariah can find themselves at a moral juncture where justice and love clash. Rejected and trapped, Billy may go rogue and either join forces with Kane or take a risk to establish himself. In addition to adding coziness, Gina and Nina's return will serve as a reminder to viewers that Genoa City's past is never truly forgotten. A city of secrets, a soap of souls conclusion. When its plots, love versus ambition, truth versus power, feel ageless, the young and the restless flourishes. All three are summed up in Tessa's Bad News, Nikki versus Jill, Victor's Phase 2. This is a reflection on legacy, how every choice, every secret, and every stage of a plan reverberates across generations, rather than just another week of soap opera mayhem. The next empire that Victor Newman plans. Jill and Nikki fight for their dignity. Tessa must deal with the fallout from the truth. Billy and Jack struggle for atonement. Genoa City, restless as ever, breathes through it all.